Hi, welcome to a Scotch on the Rocks video. Today we're going to talk about summer mountain leader ropes. We're going to cover three things really, sort of what rope, and within that the diameter you might be interested in and the length, and then the storage of the rope. So length first of all. There's nowhere in this syllabus that would say you need a certain length of rope, so a lot of it goes on the terrain you're going to be in, but I suppose more importantly your experience and the experience of sort of people in the past who have made recommendations. I would say the general consensus seems to be a 30-metre rope. Yeah. We've got to remember that the mountain leader rope work is not planned, it's unplanned use of the rope. Some people would say sort of emergency use. And it's really for little rock steps. Rock steps that on the whole, you as a leader, as a mountain leader, would be happy going up and down unaided. But something that you can't look after a client appropriately without the use of a rope. So they're fairly short. The consequence can be quite serious, but they're fairly short. I would say a 10-metre section is really actually pretty big. If you go and stand at the bottom of a 10-metre rock climb, it's actually quite tall. So we're thinking smaller than 10 metres. So why 30 metres? For a couple of reasons. First of all, your anchor might actually be very big, so that takes up quite a lot of rope. Or your anchor might be quite a long way back from the edge, from the actual little scrambling descent. So again, that takes up quite a lot of rope. And you might have both a big anchor and a long way back. And then also, whilst I think that 9 times out of 10, you should be fairly happy going up and down it yourself without the use of a rope, it may be that you're slightly injured, you've got a sore ankle, or the weather's particularly poor, or it's just a little bit too harder, and we err on the side of caution with these sorts of things. So you're going to have to abseil down, and obviously in an ideal world we retrieve our rope, so we've got 2 strands of rope we're abseiling, so it's retrievable. So you're thinking then, well, that gives you 15 metres of rope, but again, if your anchor's back from the edge, etc., etc. So a 30-metre section of rope would be the standard, I'd say. That's not to say you can't go longer. If you've got a 40-metre rope at home and that's what you want to use rather than buying a new one, that's absolutely fine. If you go shorter, then I'd say you'd have to have pretty good justification of why you're going to carry a shorter rope. And then diameter. What I've got here today are 3 options really in terms of diameter. Just to explain quickly, I've got a really skinny one here. This is a 7.9. In this bag here I've got 8.5, and then I've got a 10. And it's amazing, the difference, the difference between an 8.5 and a 10. Whilst on paper it's 1.5 mil. It actually feels quite different in reality. So I'll just go through the pros and cons, because again, just like there's no explanation or no requirement of a particular diameter of rope, length of rope that you might carry, there's no requirement for a diameter, so again it's up to your judgment, but they all have pros and cons. So I'll start with the shortest, the skinniest bit of rope that we've got. And this is a 7.9. Pros of this, well, it's pretty obvious what the pros are. It's light. It's light and it compacts down nice and easily. This obviously isn't a 30 metre section, it's 18 metres, but they pack down pretty small. So bearing in mind, we hope that it will spend all of its life in the bottom of your rucksack, never being used, then that might be a good thing. There are a couple of drawbacks of a lighter or a skinnier rope. The first being that it's harder to manage. If we think that when we're doing this for real, if we have to do it for real, you are probably not having a good day. Because if it was a good day, you'd have gone a different way around. You're probably pretty stressed, it's probably relatively poor weather, and you're probably working really hard to manage your group. So the fact that it's a little bit harder to manage is just another thing that's going to work sort of against us. And when I say harder to manage, it's just harder to grip. It's a skinnier rope that goes round us, that wraps around our arms, that we're dealing with. So there's definitely one drawback. The other drawback is when you tie knots into it and they get loaded, they're much harder to undo, especially again if we think poor weather. You might have gloves on, it might be raining, so yeah, so it's a bit harder to do that. Both are totally surmountable issues though, if you're happy with that. And then the last one, which sort of is, you know, whether it's relevant or not is debatable, because it wears out faster. But if it spends most of your life in the bottom of your bag, then it's probably not a huge issue. Most trainers and assessors wouldn't use this sort of skinniness of rope, because obviously on a training course and assessment course we use them quite often, and so they wear out just that bit faster. So there you go, there's the skinny end of the spectrum. And then at the other end we'll miss out this middleman and we'll go to the other end of the spectrum. Here's a 10mm rope. The pros and cons are unsurprisingly the exact opposite. It's much easier to handle, you know, it just feels sturdier and easier, more friction in it as you wrap it around your body and your arm, but not so much easier to undo, and it will last longer. It is more resilient than a skinny rope, but you know, it's considerably bulkier and it's going to weigh a little bit more. That said, I don't think it's ever been the weight of a rope that's stopped me getting up a mountain. And then the sort of the halfway house, the middle runner, the 8.5, which I think is what most people sort of opt for here, is, you know, it is the middle runner because it has the pros and cons of the different ropes. It's a little bit easier to handle than the skinny one, and it's a little bit more resilient to wear and tear. The knots are relatively easy to undo once they've been loaded, but it's not quite as bulky as that 10. So certainly my choice would be an 8.5mm, you know, 30-meter section of rope. On our training courses, both summer and winter, you know, we have all three for people to try, because it's really important to sort of try before you buy. You might feel that because you're inexperienced with ropes and things, you might be happier with the skinny one, or it might be that, you know, you're going to err on the side of caution and go with a fat one. But trying before you're buying and having an awareness of all the pros and cons is really important. So that's sort of what rope I might use. And then how do I store it? Well, you've seen that this rope here, that our first choice is come in a little stuff sack, and I think that's really important. We could store it just like this in the bottom of our bag and stick it in. There's a couple of drawbacks to that. First of all, I like to be able to move my rope maybe from the bottom to the top of the bag if I think that, you know, I might need to use it for confidence roping or something, without clients being aware of what it is. So I can easily take a stuff sack out, it just looks like another jacket, and put it in the mob. Obviously if I've got a rope just out, not on a stuff sack, then that's going to be harder to do really subtly. But more importantly, you know, if I have it in a stuff sack, and I'll show you in a second, but this is back coiled in, then I can just pull it out. You know, it's quite easy to pull out quickly, yeah, rather than getting my rope out and having to uncoil it, yeah, and taking my time to make sure I don't get any knots in. And this all takes a bit of time, doesn't it, you know, to go through. So definitely my preference is for a little stuff sack, and also on really wet days it can keep that a little bit dry as well. Cool, so I'll just go through how I stuff it. So first of all, my stuff sack. These are the X-Bed bags, and this is the small size, which is about the right size. Yeah, I'm going to stuff this this little skinny blue one, mainly because it's shorter, so you don't have to spend ages watching me stuff a rope into a bag, you'll get the gist. First thing I do is I might just tie a knot in the end. Yeah, this is going to be the sort of the tail of the rope. Cool, and I'm just going to pop my hood up and I'm going to loop the rope over the back of my neck. My hood's up to stop it rubbing on my skin, and I'm just going to stuff it in like this, really simple. Now I can just push it down. There's going to be loads of room in this bag. It's a skinny and short rope. Push it down, almost there. And then when I'm near the end, the way I like to have my rope stored is I'm going to have it set up with a group knot. Now we're going to cover knots in a separate video, but this is the adjustable knot that you can use with groups. So I just have that knot set up. Yeah, and that's in, ready to go. And the reason for that is if I'm going to have it, use it for confidence roping, I want to deploy it as quickly as possible. You know, the last thing my nervous client needs to see me doing is faffing with a rope. So it's nice and stuffed in there, but really quick. You know, I grab it and out it comes. Yeah, no uncoiling. So that's how I'm going to store it. And then what I like to do is I store my rope with a set of gloves, because I'm always going to use some gloves when I'm doing my rope work. Again, you know, we don't have to use gloves all the time when we're handling ropes, but it's that bad day, isn't it? You're having a bad day, you're having a stressful day, so stack the odds in your favour. And what do I use? Well, I use something like a pair of these, so something with a leather palm, yeah, and something that's pretty snug, pretty close fitting. Yeah, so I can still handle the rope. I don't want something big and baggy. Yeah, so something nice like this cinches down. I can even tuck in my bottom of my cuffs here to make sure that there's absolutely no skin out there. Yeah, and I can really cinch those down. It's a nice easy glove, but that leather palm is really important, because if it's not a leather palm, if it's a fleece glove, first of all you're going to get very little friction, very little grip, but it's going to wear through the fleece really quickly, whereas these are pretty resilient. Now obviously you don't have to buy like a fancy set of gloves. What you can get, if you just keep it in there all the time, would be like those sort of industrial supply gloves that you'll get, you know, about £5 from an industrial supply shop. They're just not as well fitting. But they go in there, and then I know, and then I can just cinch this up, and I know that, you know, I don't have to think, oh, where are my gloves? You know, again, bad day if you're using the rope, I'm pretty stressed, that they're in there. So once I have my rope, I have my gloves to hand, always. And hey presto. So, yeah, what type of rope I might carry, yeah, what length, what diameter, and then how I might store it. Cool, hope it was helpful.